The success of catfish culture in the South is based on the use of farm technology. But some aquatic species have long been considered too wild to confine in the conventional agricultural way. One such example is the far-ranging salmon. Today, many salmon populations are maintained with the help of a form of aquaculture tailored to the salmon's unique natural life cycle. In nature, this cycle of life begins where it ends, in streams like the tributaries of Oregon and Washington's Columbia River. Salmon are migratory. They are born in freshwater streams, swim to the sea where they grow for several years, and then return as adults to the very stream where they were born. The adult females lay their eggs, typically 2,000 to 4,000, in these gravel stream beds. The males fertilize them, and then the adults die. For thousands of years, salmon populations were totally dependent upon these clean, gravel-bottom streams for reproduction. Unfortunately, human activities have destroyed many of these once productive salmon streams. Native salmon populations have become threatened, and a huge, once profitable fishing industry has declined. To preserve this industry, state, provincial, and federal governments in the United States and Canada now use aquaculture techniques. They've constructed hatcheries which are designed to replace the destroyed stream beds. When the adult salmon return from the sea, they enter hatchery raceways, where they are held until ready to spawn. In one of the most modern hatcheries in the northwestern United States, federal employees periodically check the adult fish. Those that are ready to spawn will first be killed and then stripped of eggs. Hatchery procedures like these are the result of decades of experience and fine-tuning. The workers fertilize the eggs with the milk of the males. Sperm from several males are used with each group of eggs to ensure genetic variability. The fertile eggs go into hatchery trays, where a constant flow of oxygen-rich water bathes them as they mature. Environmental conditions are controlled and monitored very precisely to assure maximum survival. Over the course of about 85 days, an egg becomes a tiny fish. Early on, the eye forms. The circulatory system becomes more and more prominent with time. At the moment when the egg hatches, the tail and head pop out. Finally, these tiny salmon, called sac fry, absorb their yolk sac in a process called buttoning up. Hatcheries are very efficient. 60 to 80% of the eggs raised here produce fry which survive to migrate to the sea. In nature, fewer than 10% survive. Once the salmon leave the hatchery, they are on their own. Unlike pond-raised catfish, which must be fed and cared for daily, salmon feed freely in the open ocean. Oregon State University salmon expert Jim Lennon explains why this form of aquaculture works so well.
We can produce the juveniles quite inexpensively in hatcheries. We can release them into the marine environment, and by virtue of their migratory behavior, they will move to productive feeding grounds. They will harvest energy from natural production and they will return it to us in the form of adult salmon flesh.
Adult salmon, fat from a few years of grazing the North Pacific, have been a favorite target of commercial fishermen for more than 100 years. As natural spawning habitat continues to be lost, however, salmon populations, as well as salmon fishermen and processors in the United States, become more and more dependent on publicly financed hatcheries. But despite these very productive hatcheries, the salmon industry in the United States is having trouble making financial ends meet. The reasons are many. In some cases, there are fewer fish to be caught. The cost of catching them rises year after year. Government regulations have also been blamed for poor harvests. But there is another reason for these financial problems. It's competition, not from foreign fishermen, but from European sea farmers, like those in Scotland. Atlantic salmon have suffered many of the same problems as their Pacific counterparts: environmental damage, pollution, and overfishing. But the Scottish people have dealt with the problems differently. By far, the majority of salmon that come from this region now are neither produced by public hatcheries nor caught by commercial fishermen. They are raised by private companies such as Golden Sea Produce. These companies do not ranch salmon. They confine the fish throughout their lives in floating net pens. By confining the salmon, these sea farming companies can get a large percentage of their fish to survive until harvest. This year, Golden Sea Produce will process nearly 1 million pounds of salmon from a few net pens floating in Scotland's locks. Aquaculture operations like these are quite efficient. Golden Sea employs only 20 people. They can harvest their crop of salmon when the market is strongest, when the fish are in best condition, and when their processing plant is ready to handle them. Pen culture of salmon, like that for yellowtail, is far more efficient than depending on nature to nurture salmon at sea and then hunting them down with hooks and lines. In fact, the efficiency of aquaculture worries many fishermen around the world. They are beginning to wonder if sea farmers will be able to market fish more cheaply and reliably than they can. To understand why traditional fishing is often so inefficient and why many American fishermen fear aquaculture, we can look at North America's Chesapeake Bay. Oystermen have been leaving port at dawn from Tillman Island, Maryland, for centuries. Today, most are the sons and grandsons of oyster fishermen, and they are still doing things much the way their grandfathers did. In Bill Cummings' great-grandfather's day, oysters were plentiful in old Shellfish Bay, and a waterman could make a good living. One way of harvesting the oysters has always been by tonguing, scooping the oysters into metal rakes at the end of 2 long poles and wrestling them to the surface. Before Bill Cummings was born, watermen used to pull some 15 million bushels of oysters from the bay bottom each year. Today, 2 million would be a good harvest. There just aren't as many oysters in the bay as there once were.